Hey everyone, happy Thursday and welcome to another Facebook Live video where I am going over a chapter a week in my book, 52 Ways to Live a Kick-Ass Life. I'm Andrea Owen. In case you have no idea who I am, I run the joint over here at Your Kick-Ass Life, and every week I am bringing you a new video going over the chapters in this book. There's 52 of them, so we have a long way to go. So let's get started, shall we? We are on chapter 7, which is titled Stop Apologizing and People Pleasing. So I work with women, and women tend to run into this problem a little bit more than men, where they are chronic apologizers and chronic people pleasers. So many times they're not both, but they tend to go hand in hand. That's why I combined them in this chapter. So while we're waiting for more people to come on, I would love for you to pop on and tell us where you are from. It is spring here in North Carolina. It's been beautiful, and I'm wondering where you are all coming from. I know there's a few of you on here live. So let's jump into the chapter. And well, first of all, raise your hand if you're that person who tends to say sorry more than you think that you should, or maybe you say yes to things that you don't want to do. Maybe you are kind of really hoping always that people like you, and you're doing the dog and pony show a little bit, running around in circles, doing things that you don't want to do in order to get approval from other people, in order to get people to like you, in order to get people to love you. So just today, actually, I was on Facebook looking at my notifications, and I had a notification from a group that I'm in for, it's a group for my kids' school. And there was another mom who came in, and she said she had to make an announcement, and it was an important announcement for something that's going on at school. And she started out the message and she said, "I'm sorry to bother everyone on spring break, but," and then she goes on with her announcement, and I'm like, why would you apologize for something like that? And we see this every day. I can see if you're texting me at 1 o'clock in the morning to say, sorry to send this text at 1 a.m., or if you're sending me an email and then have to send an email again because you messed up the link, sorry for the multiple emails. Like, even that, I'm like, that's not really worthy of an apology. But to post in a group where you're making an announcement and to start it with an "I'm sorry," this is what we see all the time, right? So raise your hand if you do that. I know I'm even guilty of doing that sometimes. It just becomes a habit. So I don't know if some of you may have been in my 7-day courage challenge that I ran last week, and I was doing these videos nightly, and there were a lot of comments, and I'm scrolling through the comments at the end of the video, and I was having to pause talking so I could go over and read the comments, and I found myself about to apologize and say, sorry y'all, but I have to take a minute to read these comments. And I paused and said, like, wait a minute, what am I actually sorry for? Like, I'm not hurting anyone. Nobody's over there like, oh my God, she stopped talking for 10 seconds. Now what am I gonna do? What, this is a bunch of crap. Like, no. Just like, it becomes a habit. So this whole chapter is about that, is working on not apologizing so much and working on stopping people pleasing. And during the course of this whole video, if you have questions, I would love for you to just drop them into the comments. If you are even watching the replay, I'd be happy to come back and answer any questions that you have. So go ahead and either tell me where you're from, pop in your favorite emoji, give me something, throw me a bone, guys. I know you're there live. I can tell. I can see. Feeling lonely. All right, so let me start with I'm going to go in two fashions here. So I'm going to start with saying no. And, obviously that has everything to do with people pleasing. And saying no can be hard. You don't just decide, like, I'm going to start saying no more, and it becomes easy. If you're a chronic people pleaser, then definitely that saying no can be a difficult jump. And I always tell people, like, start with turtle steps. This particular chapter has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different tools on how to step into saying no. And I'm going to go ahead and just go over 2 of them from this chapter. The first one is when you find yourself in a place where someone asks you to do something, and you have that immediate feeling of, you know what, I really don't think I want to do that, but you're worried that they don't have anyone else to help them. You're worried that they're gonna think you're kind of a bitch if you say no. You're worried that they're gonna tell other people that they don't like you. You just have that feeling like, oh, I should probably say yes, even though I really, really want to say no. So first thing to try to do that might help is to buy yourself some time. So in the book, I say, when asked to do something, chances are you don't have to give an answer right then and there. If you're still practicing saying no and it feels very uncomfortable for you, you can say, let me check my calendar and I'll get back to you. You can say, let me ask my magic 8-ball. I jest, but you kind of get the picture, right? Or I'll have to check with my husband or my wife and then I'll get back to you tomorrow. Any of those will work. The extra time might help you find some strength to say no. And I'm even like, if it is so hard for you to say no out loud right then and there, buy yourself some time and then maybe you can go home and text them your gracious no, or email them. I want you to take turtle steps because sometimes I think big, bold steps are too hard if you've been chronically people pleasing your entire life. So the other tool is what I would love for you to watch out for is avoid making up a fear story of what the outcome might be if you say no. So all of those things I just mentioned, I'm afraid that they're going to think I'm a bitch. I'm afraid that they're going to tell everyone I'm difficult or hard to work with. I'm afraid that they won't like me. Oftentimes people imagine these catastrophic fallouts of what will happen if they don't say yes to the request. Someone might be mad at us or hate us. You'll lose your job. You'll rot in hell. Watch your thoughts here and ask yourself if that story is really true. Chances are it's one of these crazy fear stories that we have made up in our head that's never going to come true. So sometimes it's helpful just to pause and think about, what am I actually making up might happen if I say no? If I set a boundary? And on a side note, I am not asking you to be rude to people. There is definitely a way to graciously say no and still stand in kindness and honesty. You don't have to pile on a bunch of excuses. You can simply say, oh my gosh, I'd love to, but that's just not going to work for me right now. I hope you find somebody else to do it. Excuse me, I got excited. They are responsible for their got really excited. They are responsible for their feelings. We cannot control how they will think, what they will say. We sure try though, right? Because we keep saying yes. So the bottom line of it is chronic apologizing can be an all-out life sucker. Many women I know apologize for who they are by following up their opinion with, wait a minute, I'm getting ahead of myself because now I'm talking about apologizing. The cough threw me off, sorry. But I hope that those tools are helpful for you in starting to say no, because again, it can be really, really hard. But I also invite you to think about how much is that costing you? And what I also want you to, I'm going to add on kind of a like a bonus here and think about if you're ever feeling resentful, if you're ever feeling blamey, like, well, if only I didn't have to do everything, then my life would be easier, then I wouldn't be so busy, then I wouldn't feel so overwhelmed. That might be an indicator that you need to start saying no more often, that you need to start setting some boundaries, because people will keep asking you to do things if you always say yes. And they might actually keep asking you if you say no, but at least you're the one who has control of your schedule. You're the one that has control of your, of just your sanity. I mean, for lack of a better word, really. And there will always be people who don't like you. To be really honest, there will, even if you chronically say yes to everything, even if you chronically people please until the cows come home, there will still be people who don't like you. I know, it's scary, but it's true. And Siri thinks I'm talking to her, and you can't control that by continuing to say yes all the time. So now I'm going to talk to you about chronic apologizing. And so, hi, Lacey. I'm going to, again, talk about this because I do believe that they go hand in hand. People pleasers tend to be chronic apologizers as well. So chronic apologizing can be an all-out life sucker. Many women I know apologize for who they are by following up their opinion with, I'm sorry, but that's just who I am. I myself used to say that statement often when I was speaking my truth and knew people weren't going to like it. Many women apologize for what they believe in. They apologize for their hopes and dreams and their ambitions, for anything where other people might not or don't agree with them. When you're apologizing in that way, it comes from a place of fear and not from a place of your heart. And again, I gave you that example earlier about apologizing or starting to apologize for pausing to read some comments. And so I think, one of the biggest takeaways I can tell you about apologizing is just to start to notice how often you're doing it. And hopefully just by watching this video, you will start to notice if you're doing it a lot. And I've heard I don't know who, I wish I could credit the person who came up with this exercise, but someone told me that when they start to apologize, instead of saying, I'm sorry, they can say, excuse me. And that will just kind of like give you a little smack over the head, like, oh, I was just about to apologize. And I know in Canada, I have a Canadian client and she's so adorable. She says, I'm sorry all the time. And she's like, I think it's a Canadian thing. So if there's any Canadians out there, is it kind of a Canadian thing? And so the way that she was saying it all the time, I'm like, it sounds like you're replacing I'm sorry with how we would say, pardon me or excuse me. So it's become kind of just like this semantics in our culture. But I really would like to have you be more aware of how much you are actually apologizing. And your best, most authentic self does not need to apologize probably as much as you are. And I think it seems to come down to, it feels like some people, mostly women, are apologizing for just existing, apologizing for taking up space, apologizing for speaking up. And I know that that's hard because we kind of live in a culture that doesn't encourage that, with gusto, to go out there and give your opinion and take up space. And we aren't exactly celebrated a lot for that. So when we tend to come out of the box and maybe even start to do all those things, we feel like we need to be apologetic for it. And I am on the team that says, no, we don't. We actually don't need to apologize for speaking your truth, for being honest, for setting boundaries, for just existing. So just think about how often you actually apologize and maybe try to replace it with other things like excuse me, or just not going to say I'm sorry. So again, I have tips in here about how to stop apologizing. I'll just read you a couple of them. I already told you the one about to try to start keeping track of how often you are saying it, just as a matter of self-awareness. And when you find yourself about to say sorry, stop yourself before the word comes out of your mouth and ask yourself if you are truly feeling remorseful at that moment or if it's something else. Are you instead feeling embarrassed? Are you feeling confused? Are you feeling guilty, frustrated, or maybe needing to feel validated about something from the other person? Can you pinpoint what you're really feeling instead? Because chances are you're not really feeling remorseful about something you're about to do or something that you just did, which is what is really going on when we are genuinely apologizing. So deal with that emotion that is actually coming up once you find it instead of apologizing. So that's about it for this chapter on apologizing and people pleasing from the book. And Lacey, you said, I got invited to do a thing I didn't want to go to and waited 3 days to reply because I couldn't figure out how to say no without hurting her feelings. And then I just wrote an email and said, I don't want to do the thing, but I still love you. Right? Because Lacey, that's a great example. Because what you were probably worried about is, like you said, I didn't want to hurt her feelings, but it wasn't personal to her. It wasn't that you didn't dislike, it wasn't that you didn't like her. You did like her, but it was just the thing that you didn't want to do. And you can even say that in the email, like, this is not personal at all. I really would love to come and hang out with you, but it's this thing that I don't want to do. And you can, I'm not all for piling on excuses, but if you have a valid and noble excuse, by all means, maybe you're overloaded with stuff. Maybe you are in the middle of writing a book. I know what that's like. I've had to say no so much. Like it is a little painful, but I always remember too what I am actually saying yes to. I'm saying yes to finishing this project, which is a passion project. I'm saying yes to all of you by getting out a really great book. I'm saying yes to my own creativity. I'm saying yes to being a great role model for my children by setting boundaries. The list goes on and on and on. And still, like, I get an invitation to do something and my own inner voice says, like, you should probably do that. If you say no, you might not ever get asked to do something like this again. If you say no, they might be connected with somebody. It's like, and on and on and on and on. So that might be another tool for you, is when you are saying no, figure out what you are actually saying yes to, because you are saying yes probably to more than one thing. First of all, you're saying yes to yourself, and the list probably goes on and on of what you're saying yes to. Stephanie is a recovering apologizer. Yes, I am too. I absolutely am too. And we should just form a club, and I could be the president, or Stephanie, if you want to be the president, absolutely. Yes, there's so many of us. So join me next week, next Thursday at noon Eastern. We are going to be talking about relationships then, how bad relationships are great life lessons because no one's had their heart broken, right? And also, if you are interested in joining me where I am teaching what I call the 30-day experience, it is my third and final time teaching this particular 30-day class. We are learning all about your core beliefs because, listen, if you are a chronic apologizer or a chronic people pleaser, I guarantee you that there are core beliefs that you have about yourself which are disempowering, which have been building up over time that you may not even know about. So that is the very first module that we go over in the 30-day experience. You can go to 30dayexperience.com to read more about it. There is plenty of other work that we do, and all of the takeaways and results that you can get from that class are there. This is, it's quite a ride. I'll just say that. I'll pop the link in the comments. And thank you so much for being here live, everyone. I love doing these videos. If you're watching the replay, make sure that you ask questions, and I will be sure to jump back and answer them for you, or visit me live every Thursday at noon Eastern time. All right, see ya.